I cannot believe the time has finally come to film another mid-year book freakout tag. This specific book tag was what started my YouTube channel almost a year ago, so it only felt right to film another one of these tags for 2025 as well. I think this is a super fun video to film, but also to watch the videos of other creators. It just feels like old YouTube back again, and I am so here for it. I've seen a lot of creators already posting their mid-year book freakout tags, and I'm excited to film mine today. So with that out of the way, let's begin. Before I actually answer to the prompts of this tag, I wanted to tell you how many books I read so far this year, and let me actually check on Goodreads because I didn't check in a while. Like, I know I'm way ahead schedule, but I don't know exactly by how much. Okay, so far this year I read 71 books, and it says here that I am 21 books ahead of schedule because my goal for the year is again of 100 books as it was last year. So, with that being said, let's begin with the first prompt, the first question for this tag, and that is best book you've read so far in 2025. I want to actually start with the first book that I read in 2025, and that is Don't Let the Forest In by CJ Drews. I absolutely adore the way that this author is describing nature, forests, rotting vegetation, and stuff like that. This is a YA fantasy book that's pretty gory and dark, and it follows these two guys who are in college, I'm pretty sure, and they have to fight monsters in the forest adjacent to their campus each night. And let's just say that after a certain time, they discover that the monster might potentially be one of them. So I highly enjoyed that, and I know CJ Drews already came out or will come out with another book called Hazeltorn that is pretty much in the same realm, so I'm very excited for that one as well. Another book that I absolutely adore this year is none other than All Fours by Miranda July. This is my first Miranda July book, and it was immaculate and elite. We are following this woman who's, I think, in her 40s, and she is just having a midlife crisis. It seems she tells her family that she wants to go to this other place with a couple of her friends, but she never actually makes it there. She just stops somewhere along the way there and rents a hotel room. She's redecorating it, she's having an affair. And she's just pretty much rediscovering herself, her sexuality, her interests, and stuff like that. Also, this is pretty much one of the only books that I've read that talks about menopause. Another book that absolutely devastated me this year is obviously Clockwork Princess, specifically the epilogue from Clockwork Princess. This is the conclusion of the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare, and even though it's a YA series, this is pretty much the best love triangle that I have ever read in a book, point blank. This was super, super fun. Like, the plot is not really that important, some things are happening, but you don't read these books for the plot, you read it for the character development and for the love story between these characters. So this is Clockwork Princess. Loved, loved, loved this one. Blood Over Brighthaven by ML Wang. This was such a nice surprise. I knew that this author is very well regarded in the book space, book by the book community, but I didn't know exactly why. So I decided to start my ML Wang journey with this book, and let's just say I did not regret it. This author also has another book called The Sword of Kaigan that is also very popular in the fantasy community, so I'm looking forward to read that one as well sometime soon, but we'll see about that. This specific book is about our main character Sayona, who wants to become pretty much the very first high mage of this world of Brighthaven, and throughout this journey she's discovering what fuels their powers, and she doesn't really know if she's okay with that, with stealing something from another part of their population just to achieve her goals. This talks a lot about women's rights and inequality and stuff like that. And even though it's through a fantasy lens, I highly enjoyed how this subject was tackled and how it was done. Obviously, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I cried so much when I read this book. I read it on release day and it was just immaculate. I wouldn't have expected anything less from Suzanne Collins because she always said that she will not write any more books in this Hunger Games series if she doesn't have anything to say. And it was very clear from this book that she had something very powerful to say. Sunrise on the Reaping is basically about Hamish Abernathy's Hunger Games, the second quarter quell, the 50th Hunger Games. And in this book, Suzanne Collins talks a lot about media and how media is manipulating the masses in a way. We also learn some tragic things about some of these characters that we knew and that we love from the main Hunger Games trilogy. So it's just like a really good book. And I don't think the dystopian genre would be what it is today without the original Hunger Games trilogy. So I highly recommend you read Sunrise on the Reaping if you have previously read the Hunger Games trilogy and you want to go back into that universe. Another book that I absolutely loved, but it made me cry so much. This is We Do Not Part by Hong Kong. This is a newer release from this author, and this book tackles the Jeju massacre that happened sometime in the late 40s. I think it was 1948 or 49, something along those lines. In this book, we are following two characters, In Seon and Kyung Ha. In Seon had an accident. I think she cut her finger off or something along those lines. So she has to be transported to a hospital in Seoul from the Jeju Islands where she lives. And then Inseon's friend Kyung Ha goes to visit her in the hospital. While she's there, Inseon asks Kyung Ha to go to the Jeju Island, to her house, to save her pet bird, because if the bird is not fed, she will most probably die. So Kyung Ha embarks on this journey to go to the Jeju Island. She takes the last plane there from that day, and when she arrives on the island, there's this massive snowstorm that's pretty much paralyzing the island. She doesn't really have where to go because the buses stopped working, so she's trying to find a way to reach Inseon's house on time for her to feed the bird. She somehow makes it to Inseon's house, and while she is there, she discovers that her friend is actually researching the Jeju massacre, as I said, that happened in the late 40s. Highly recommend We Do Not Part by Hong Kong. Check the trigger warnings before you pick this up. And last but not least, for the category of best books that I've read so far in 2025, Lucy Undying by Kirsten White. This was so stupid at times, but like in the best way. This is obviously inspired by Bram Stoker's Dracula, and we are following our main character, Lucy Westerna, as she is pretty much trying to work on her past trauma. She was turned into a vampire by Dracula, and now in the present day, we are following her through her therapy sessions. We get to read her therapy transcripts, but we also follow her in the past and what was her life before she was turned into a vampire. On a completely different timeline, we are following Iris, who is the inheritor of this MLM company. Her mother recently died, and she tries to make as much money off of her mother's properties in London as much as possible. But once she goes to visit one of these houses, she discovers something that ties her story to Lucy's, and they team up to overthrow this MLM company that may or may not be run by vampires. So as I said, pretty on the nose and pretty stupid, but I really liked how this was handled. So this was Lucy Undying. I feel like I've talked a lot and this was only the first question. So moving along to the second one, best sequel you've read so far in 2025. I think there's no surprise that two Cassandra Clares are going to make an appearance here. The first one is Chain of Iron. This is the sequel to Chain of Gold, and both of these are part of the Lost Hours trilogy. These are following the children of the main couples that formed at the end of the Infernal Devices. That was a mouthful to say, but this was so good, and I think I liked this one the best out of everything that happened in this trilogy. So this is Chain of Iron. And then also by Cassandra Clare, I read her newest release, and that is the Rag Picker King. This is part of Cassandra Clare's adult fantasy series that is not part of the Shadowhunters universe, and the name of the series is called The Chronicles of Castlane. I have the first one somewhere here, I believe. The first one is Swordcatcher, and this is the sequel to that called The Ragpicker King. This is where Cassandra Clare truly shines within this series, because in the first book, I think we spent a lot of time with world building and trying to get to know these characters. I liked that one a lot as well. But this one, this is where it gets twisty and turny, and it was just so much fun. And I am very, very excited to read the continuation to this series when that will come out, but I don't think it's going to come out too soon, because next year she's going to publish the first book in the last series from the Shadowhunters universe, and then potentially we're gonna get the continuation to this one in 2027. I don't know, we'll see, but I really liked The Ragpicker King. Okay, next question is new release you haven't read yet but want to. I really want to get into the new book from Adrian Young that was published in January or February, A Sea of Unspoken Things. I also have a new release from Ocean Vuong called The Emperor of Gladness. I recently bought this book and I did not manage to read it yet, but I want to read it in the near future. And then what else? In terms of new releases that I haven't read yet, Four Ruined Realms by Mike Warland. This is the continuation or the sequel to Five Broken Blades. And I don't know what it is because I have it on my Kindle, but the chapters are like so short and so fragmented that I wasn't really in the mood to read Four Ruined Realms. I don't know what's happening, but I do want to continue with this series because I remember the first one ended on a massive cliffhanger, so I do want to know how it continues. And also Immortal by Sulin Tan. I believe Immortal is also set in the same universe or same world as the Celestial Kingdom duology. And I liked that duology a lot, so I do want to read Immortal at some point. Next up, we have most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. Here we have a lot of books, so buckle up. I tried to write them down in the chronological order. So the first one is Ascension by S.T. Gibson. This is the sequel to Evocation, and I think it most probably already came out by the time you're watching this because it's supposed to be released on July 8th. Next up I have Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This is a dark reimagining of Snow White and it is expected to be released on August 19. Obviously everyone has this next book on their most anticipated releases, and that is Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. Is it Catabasis or Catabasis? I never knew how to pronounce it, but this book is basically about two students who go to hell to save their professor's soul. It sounds amazing, but we'll see how it was executed. This is expected to be released on August 26. ML Rio has also an upcoming book for the second half of the year, and it is called Hot Wax. This is supposed to be a thriller, murder, mystery kind of a thing. Historically, I don't really do well with that sort of genre anymore, but we'll see, because at the end of the day, it is still ML Rio, and I do like their writing style a lot, so I do want to read it eventually. To Clutch a Razor by Veronica Roth. So this is the sequel to When Among Crows, a book that I really, really liked. I read it last year, and this is set to be released on September 16. Another sequel by Mona Awad is called We Love You, Bunny, and obviously this is a sequel to Bunny, it is expected to be released on September 23. Also on September 23, another sequel, but this time by Holly Black. This is Thief of Night, the sequel to Book of Night, a book that I have not read yet, but I really want to read it before its sequel comes out. Stephanie Garber's adult debut that I'm very excited for. It is called Alchemy of Secrets and it is expected to be released on October 7. And last but not least, you already know, Girl Dinner by Olivia Blake. This is expected to be released on the 21st of October and this just sounds so up my alley. So it says, a darkly fun novel about power, lust, and eating your fill, as wealthy moms and sorority girls practice a sinister new wellness trend. I'm very excited for any new Olivia Blake book, but specifically for Girl Dinner. Switching gears a bit, biggest disappointment. The Ministry of Time by Kelly and Bradley. I was so disappointed mainly because everyone seemed to really like this book. And I read it and it was just not for me. The writing style was super questionable. There were a lot of similes that didn't really make sense to me. I actually have a reading vlog on the channel if you want to watch that to hear more of my thoughts on this book, but it was just weird. Another book that I didn't like at all and it got me so mad and frustrated is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. That book was so bad. I'm sorry, it is what it is. That was really bad. And then another one that got me not even disappointed, like I was just full on mad with this book, The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I don't know why this is so hyped because it didn't really do anything for me. And as I said, I was just frustrated that this book was written in the way that it was because it was just gibberish. Nothing made sense. And I didn't see the point of it. Again, this is my personal opinion. So if you liked that one, I'm happy for you, but it was just not for me. Okay. Next prompt is biggest surprise. And I have interpreted this as a book that I've read that I didn't really have any expectations to like it, but I ended up loving it. So one of these books is Medusa's Sisters. This is kind of dusty because it was on the top of my shelf for quite a while, but this is Medusa's Sisters by Lauren J.A. Baer. Obviously, this book is centering two of Medusa's sisters, Euriale and Steno and Euriale. They are known as the Gorgons, but this explained pretty much their story from birth up until, well, not really their death, but up until the point when they turned into the Gorgons that we know. This book was written so well, in my opinion, and I would definitely check the trigger warnings beforehand because there's a pretty graphic scene of SA. But other than that, I would wholeheartedly absolutely recommend this one if you are into mythology retellings. I think this one was really well done. And then the next biggest surprise for me personally, I recently read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by Victoria E. Schwab. The reason for which I consider this a big surprise is because I've been very hit or miss with Victoria Schwab's books. I absolutely loved the Villains duology, but Gallant and Addie LaRue I didn't really like. And because this newest release from this author, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, is in the same universe as Addie LaRue, I was a bit skeptical because I didn't really know what to expect. But it turns out I absolutely loved it. So in Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, we are basically following three lesbian vampires who are torturing each other through time. What more could you ask for? The next question is favorite new to me author. CJ Drews. As I said, Don't Let the Forest In, I adored, and I'm very excited to read their other books as well. Miranda July, I don't really know if she has any other books published. I have to look into that, but I really liked this one. Emil Wang, who wrote Blood Over Bright Haven and Sword of Kaigan. Oisin McKenna, who wrote Evenings and Weekends. This was another book that I really liked that I read earlier this year, and I just enjoyed my time while reading this so much. So I'm looking forward to new books from this author. From Yoko Ogawa, I read two books, Revenge and The Memory Police. Revenge, which is this one with the cranberries on the floor or whatever they are. Revenge is actually an anthology of short stories centering on the theme of revenge, obviously, and I adored how this subject was handled and how unique each of these stories are, but they are also somewhat interconnected. So I really liked this super short book. And then with this other one, The Memory Police, I liked the idea, not that much the execution of. I'm looking forward to read other books from Yoko Ogawa. I already have on my TBR shelf that's back here Mina's Matchbox that I'm looking forward to read sometime this year. An author whose book I just read, Adam Silvera with They Both Die at the End. This author's posts kept popping up on threads, and they recently came out with the third book in this series called The Survivor Wants to Die at the End or something like that. And I've been always having my eyes on this series. I just didn't really know what it was about, so I didn't really get into it previously. But this year I finally decided to pick this one up and to read it, and it just felt like it was 2010 all over again, and I read my first John Green book for the first time. Like, it was really good, and I'm looking forward to continue this series and other books from this author. And last but not least, for these favorite new to me authors, I read Stag Dance earlier this year by Tori Peters and absolutely loved it. I loved the writing style. I liked how weird and unique each of these stories were, and I'm also looking forward to read this author's debut that is called The Transition Baby. I've seen it on the shelves of my local bookstores a long time ago, and I was intrigued by it, and I don't really know why I haven't picked it up, but as soon as I saw this one, I knew I had to read it, and honestly, I don't regret anything because it was absolutely amazing. Next prompt is newest favorite character, and obviously I couldn't pick between Wilja and Tessa, so they all have to be my favorite characters that I've read about so far in 2025. Also, shout out to The Gargoyle from The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, who says Bartholomew every other 5 words. I think it was hilarious. The Gargoyle absolutely slayed in this book. Next prompt is book that made you cry. Boy, oh boy, I have a lot of those. The Epilogue of Clockwork Princess, as I said before. Sunrise on the Reaping, for obvious reasons. We Do Not Part by Hong Kong. This book absolutely devastated me by how sad but also serene it is. Call Me By Your Name by Andrei Asiman. I've obviously seen the movie like a couple of times now, and I've never read the book, so I decided to read it, and I knew what I was getting myself into, but I still cried. And they both die at the end, not because they died at the end, because I knew what I was getting myself into by the title, obviously, but how we got there, it was devastating. Also, because their friends knew that this is their last day, and they were still by their side, and they were trying to make their last day be as joyous as possible, obviously considering the circumstances. Next prompt is book or books that made you happy. I feel like I've been saying this book for pretty much all of the prompts, all of the questions, but can you tell how much I love The Infernal Devices? Because this was absolutely perfect. The River Has Roots by Amal Motar. This was so beautifully written. You have songs, you have a mysterious family, you have fae, you have this whole folklore element to the story. I absolutely love this one. And last in this category, we actually have a series of books. This is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, Map of the Other Lands, and Compendium of Lost Tales. This is obviously centering Emily Wilde, a scholar who in the first book tries to gather data for her first encyclopedia of fairies, and hijinks ensue from there. We also have like a rival who's really a love interest, but by the third book, the story progresses so nicely, and I also like that these are the type of fae that Holly Black would write about. I absolutely love this darker spin on the fairy world, and I think this series is perfection for that. Next prompt is most beautiful book or books you've bought so far this year or that you have received. No particular order. These are just some cover designs that I absolutely love. Starting with the Emily Wilde series, I really like these cover designs by Del Rey. The UK covers, stunning, beautiful, gorgeous, but I don't think they encompass the ethos and the aesthetics of the story itself. I think these ones are so much more suited for the actual story and world in this series. So I love these editions so much. You can tell just like the details even on the back of these books, like they're absolutely gorgeous. Again, The River Has Roots by Amal Al-Mohtar. I also like that it has this is this color called chartreuse? In my mind it is, but I might be wrong on that one. And then also the design inside of the actual book. You have all of these like images of vegetation and flowers and rivers, and it is super pretty inside as well. You have a rooster or chicken, I don't know what this is, but I really like this book so much. Obviously, I had to include Adding Storm in this category because just look at these dragons. Look at these dragons. Speaking of dragons, I do have another book with a sprayed edge and with a dragon that's flying here, and also a gorgeous actual hardcover with gold foiling. These are pretty rare. I think the majority of hardcovers are just like plain black and no design underneath the dash jacket, but this is really pretty. This is the first edition of A Language of Dragons by S.F. Williamson that I really liked. Like, it's on the younger side of YA, but I think the story is really good. It's about this revolution that ignites within this world with dragons. Queer as Folklore by Such a Coward. I absolutely adore the colors and the actual design on this book, and also on the back you have this mermaid, fairy, unicorn thing. This is a nonfiction book talking about how queer monsters and creatures are depicted in folklore, and I actually feel like I learned something from this book, so I would highly recommend it if you are into that kind of stuff. Another series, these are so heavy. This is, which one is the first one? This one. Chain of Gold. This is the Lost Hours series by Cassandra Clare. So Chain of Gold, Chain of Iron, and Chain of Thorns. I really like the covers of these books. A newer release, The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. Look at this cover. Look at this cover, absolutely beautiful. I also really enjoyed the story in this one. I'm already looking forward to the sequel of this, but I think it's going to be a while because this just came out. And then two books that I didn't actually read yet. This is Holly Black's Book of Night. I said previously that the sequel to this is gonna come out in the second half of the year, and I really wanted the hardcover copy of this book, so someone on Vinted sold it to me for a really good price. This is having this really pretty sprayed edges. It's just like blue on the top and bottom, and the actual sprayed edges are with this moon and stars. And then this is actually signed by Holly Black. So I do hope that I will enjoy this story. And then last but not least for this prompt is Henry. I recently picked this one up, so I have not read it yet, but I really like this blue with this portrait on the front of it. And the final prompt for the mid-year book freakout tag: what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Boy, oh boy, this is a loaded question. The first one that I want to finish is this mammoth of a book. This is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Stormlight archive, and look at it. This is just as big as my head, like it's crazy. This has more than 1,000 pages, so I am quite scared to get into it. But I just know that it's going to be so rewarding because I read some other standalones from Brandon Sanderson. I read Dress of the Emerald Sea last year, and last month I didn't really talk about this book just yet on the channel, but last month I read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and I really like that one as well. So I know Brandon Sanderson is not going to disappoint. I just have to be in a specific mind space to read this one, but I really do want to read it by the end of this year so that next year I can get into some other books from this series as well. Another series that I want to read by the end of the year, I don't actually know if this is a series or it's more so an interconnected standalone situation, but this is the first book in the Saints of Steel, I think it's called, by T. Kingfisher, and this is Paladin's Grace. These covers are new and they are published by Orbit. The old covers were not really that great in my opinion, and knowing that these are going to come out, I just postponed buying them, and a couple of days ago I finally bought this first book in the series with the new cover, and it is absolutely stunning. Now I realize I should have included this for the last prompt as well with the most beautiful books, but yeah, I absolutely adore what they did with these new covers. I think they are fitting the vibe of these books quite well, and I'm really looking forward to get into this one and to read the other three as well by the end of the year. They're all called Paladins something, and my phone doesn't want to unlock. Okay. They're called, so this is the first one, Paladin's Grace, and we also have Paladin's Strength, Hope, and Faith. And someone on Threads recently convinced me to start reading Joe Abercrombie's books. Obviously, his series are massive because he seems to write a lot, just like Brandon Sanderson. This year, I really want to get into the First Law trilogy. I understand that that is the first one that you should read when it comes to Joe Abercrombie. So I'm looking forward to at least start the First Law trilogy. I don't know if I'm going to finish it, depending on if I will like it or not, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to that as well. And I see that on my notes here, I said also everything on my physical TBR, lol. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but we have to hope, right? Okay, enough rambling. I know this video was pretty long already. Thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below what books are you excited to read in the second half of the year. And also, if you are going to pick up some of these new releases that I've talked about, I would like to know. Like, subscribe, do all of the YouTube things if you would want to. And I guess I will see you in a new video soon here on the channel. Bye everyone.